All right, so I just hit record and we're live on Facebook. And just want to welcome everyone to the Everything is Possible workshop featuring some tools and a special guest today. Now you're going to have to let me know if you're following and you can't hear me or hear Becky, my guest. And I'm still just kind of taking this second to figure out tech. Becky, on your end, can you hear?
I'm hearing everything okay.
Okay. And I will admit people as they come. And I'm just hearing kickback from both venues, so figuring it out, bear with me. I always think I'm ready and then I, have a brain fart. Well, this is a workshop where I see everyone here as exceptional and amazing. And what I like to drive in my workshops is that you get your learning edge challenged. And when you're here, you can understand that your brain's going to question what you're hearing, and it's going to question that you're in the right place at the right time. And I want you to take the energy that we're going to offer today, and I want you to be able to take some with you for the weekend and for the week. And the intention is to give you a concept that you can name, gain an understanding simply, and leave with some steps to use what we talk about. I think the most important thing that you get when you attend a workshop is energy. This is like summer camp. What I loved about summer camp when I was a kid, and I maybe had shared some of this with Becky already beforehand, is when I was a kid, I was a little bit of a freak. I had a lot of magical thinking. And when I got to summer camp, and even now when I get away up north, I feel more of myself. And I try to embody that all the time. Oh, let me make sure I'm not missing. Okay. All the time. And that can be the work. And this was no fault of my parents, I'll just say. I didn't share with them how much I needed to support me as that person. And so no fault to them. I wasn't willing to be super honest about who I was. And it's taken me through my 30s, my 40s, and some of my 50s to continue to grow that skill of letting myself be my authentic freak and be at summer camp more often and have magical thinking. So that's kind of where I want you guys to land today. Grab a blanket, grab a coffee, and just listen. And if you're driving, just listen. And if you can't make it, I will send this to you on replay if you can't stay. So if you don't know me, I'm Andrea. I am a life coach. I will introduce my guest shortly. So I help people do hard work without being hard on themselves. That's really the sentence I could come up with today. And living into what's possible. It's about having the tools of mind and body to support whatever you are working on. And we can talk offline or after this if you're thinking that everything is possible for you and you want to pick up work with me. We can talk about how you can get your introductory stuff today and start working with me next week. If you heard the music, maybe not, that I had going, that was on Amazon Prime, not plugging Amazon, but Beautiful Chorus. They offer music for every chakra and to help you call in a lot of different energies. So the name of the group is Beautiful Chorus. So if you wanted to write that down, you could certainly reflect on that today. The other thing that I want you to know as we're talking, you might hear us talk about archetypes, and I just want to plug this book for Kim Krans. She's super important to my work in archetypes, and I will explain that to you. You can find this online in many places. So today, the mindset I want you to embody as you're here is everything is possible. The thinking that everything is possible. We get what we think about, and our thinking is our beliefs. And I'm just going to do a little preface, which I did tell my guest Becky I would be doing. but I'm going to also go a little bit dark. The two things that we all do as humans, we all die, and we all have a brain and a body that work similarly, although our neurochemistries are different. So the funny thing that I think about is that we have 60,000 thoughts per day. And those thoughts come from what we're observing, what we're seeing and smelling and tasting and hearing and touching. And from that moment of observation, we have then a thought, which then communicates down to our body, and it gives us a feeling. And then we take actions, or for some of us, inactions, and that waxes and wanes. And so then that shows up as the result of our life. And so I like to break it down simply for people to be thinking about as we go through this workshop, because when I'm asking you to think everything is possible, that is based on what you've observed and what you will observe. It's based on what you know about yourself, and it's going to bring up feelings in you. And that's something I always think is helpful to think about. Now, 60,000 thoughts a day, if you're really like thinking about it, that is a lot of money thoughts. That's a lot of money to drive. That is a lot of thoughts about connection. When you pay attention and you ask yourself different questions, like, what do I really want here? What do I desire? And what is missing right now? That is a lot of thoughts that we get to drive. When I started doing this work about 7 years ago, 10 years ago, they were simple tools that I like to share with people that have high impact. It had high impact in my life. And it was not power over others to manipulate, but power to genuinely create the environment that I wanted to live in. It was the power to love people in the way I want to and the way they want to be loved. That was a big shift for me, getting to experience life in the way that I really, truly, authentically wanted to. So you heard me mention everything is possible. That's what I want you to be thinking today when you are going through this workshop. How we tend to think about what's possible for us is based on a stereotype of, if you are this and have done this and have been successful at this, then this will happen. This is kind of like a collective algorithm. What archetypes help us do is step out of that stereotype and call in energies that help us ask ourselves different questions, that help us show up for ourselves in a way that's meaningful and says, well, what resources do I already have? And if I wasn't so worried, what would this look like? And when we can tap into what is possible and use archetypes, it's a great way for us to then live into that. The nice thing about working with a coach one-on-one like me is that we can take the bucket of everything is possible and really find out what you want to be possible. So it looks like if we had people here right now, or if you're online, let me check Facebook for comments. Okay, we're good yet. Here is what I would ask is, what takeaway would you want specifically? And before Becky introduces herself, I will share with you kind of what we were thinking about takeaways. And would you be willing to share how you already do this work? Because everybody's at a different level of where they are working to. And Becky and I were talking before this, and we're always growing. We're always going from one plateau to a next level to a next level. And it's remembering that we're not always entitled to be where we want to be or to stay where we think we should stay. So I want to take 60 seconds and have you write down the sentence, everything is possible for me. And then in that 60 seconds, free write about what that brings up in you. Okay. So what I would like you to do then is think about what you wrote or discovered. And I'll tell you what I wrote is that I can let myself be a person that shares summer camp experiences with more people. Like that's really valuable to know that there are people out there that connect with you. And so however that landed for you, whether it brought up doubt and fear, excitement or appreciation, it's all okay. So this is where I want to talk a little bit about logic and energy, or mind and body, and how they are partners. And I work with a lot of healthcare professionals that look at bodies all the time. And when I ask them to show me what their body looks like or feel their body, I can get this a little bit of wiggle. And so it's nice to remember that this brain is connected with this body and it's all a partnership. So let's say now you've got something in your mind like, oh, this could be possible. When you're thinking that with your mind, your body might feel doubt or fear. And how I need you to marry those, or would like to invite you to marry those, is that when your body says the message to your brain, oh, this feels really traumatic and hard, your mind says, okay, I'll just go back to what I was doing before, just so that their partnership can remain intact. For them to work together, for you to change what's possible for you, your mind will need to remind your body, this feels like something really hard. It's going to be really important for us to work together. And then your inner feedback system is going to be very important for moving yourself forward. And that's not going back to exactly what's possible, but it's of what you know is possible, but it's moving you forward. So that's how the mind and body work together. And sometimes your body is the one that's calling your mind. So they do have a shared partnership. And again, if that's something you're really interested in talking about, we can talk about that more after the workshop, or you can always find me on Facebook. So this brings up desire. And the reason I wanted to touch base on desire before we started talking with Becky is because desire can sometimes seem too far out, too impossible, and too bold for the person that we stereotypically know ourselves to be. What we desire may require lots of feelings. And so remember when I said all of our brains work alike, a lot of times we can just put up a half here. We could see half of the emotional scale that seems available to us. And then we have a whole other 50% of that pie that are the emotions that really are so valuable to us that we're not used to feeling or haven't been invited to feel, because society will tell us it's probably not going to get you where you want to go. It's probably going to be too hard. It isn't the signature of a good life. So just opening up the emotional codes, the emotions in our body and our minds that are super useful to us, but we haven't had access before. Some of those feelings are, you have to balance calm with chaos. When you have chaos, what you'll hear today is the thing Becky can share is that there is calm. And when you have fear, sometimes you can counterbalance that with other emotions, and you practice feeling those. Once you have awareness that those are actually there, and you're not like, oh, I haven't felt angry in so long. You probably have, maybe you just haven't known how to express it. Or I haven't felt afraid in so long. Now for me, when I'm not feeling afraid, then I know that I probably am not doing my best work. So that's where my mind and my body have to really marry with each other. So the next thing I would like you to write down, this is the last 60 seconds before I go into introducing our guest, is right now, pick one thing to focus on that activates pure desire for you. That's probably going to stretch your brain, because that can be a really interesting thing, but go ahead and free write, and I'm going to give you 60 seconds to do that. Okay, 60 seconds is up. Would you be willing to share what you wrote down? I think what was going through my mind is that still it's hard to know what I desire. Becky, do you have anything to say about that?
I thought of a summer camp feeling, honestly, Andrea. I thought of, I've been finding myself right now desiring water skiing. So, like in the cold months of winter, looking forward to something coming up and just thinking of that feeling of freedom, sort of flying, joy, and the warmth of the sun. So it made me think of really positive emotions. Whereas the first exercise, I definitely had what I would consider more negative or different experiences. But this one brought up just a sense of something that I've looked forward to.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry that I apologize for not asking about your response on the last one. That was not ideal. Thank you for sharing that. So in this moment, I'm having just some kickback from Facebook, so I'm trying to figure out how to just silence that kickback. So pardon me for 1 second, guys. Okay. You think I would have this figured out by now? I feel like it's always a surprise every single time.
Because I think it's different every time. I think technology acts how it wants to act in the moment.
For sure.
And give you challenges to act and think on your feet and be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. And I put my foot in my mouth a lot, multiple times a day. I'm pretty good at that. Well, for now, we'll just keep going. If it interferes for anyone else, eventually I will have an epiphany and figure out how it goes. So thank you everyone for weighing in on those thoughtful questions. And with no further ado, I want to say that what I had said is I'm always connected with Becky, and we reconnected in a summer camp type environment where I love sleep. I go to bed really early every night, and I could have stayed up all night chatting. I feel like we've known each other forever. She always makes me feel like I know what the heck I'm doing in the best way. Her energy is palpable, and I know that she had a bio I was supposed to read that was super logical, but she reaches me on such a different place. She is a nurse and a Reiki practitioner, and her professions require her to help people in crisis every day and not be in crisis for herself. And being a nurse has required her to have belief that people have the right to suffer, that life is not static, that calm is available as a partner to chaos. And wherever you are as a nurse, people are still coming to you looking for you to help them. And being in flow and alignment for ourselves first and have the care that has to happen for ourselves to outflow to others is the thing that I felt about her immediately when we're reconnected. And her profession, especially nursing, is one of the most complex calling of mind and body, holding one's own space while holding space for others, and in letting herself thrive when others just simply cannot, but thriving in those moments. And I think there's so much you're going to take from her today, and I so appreciate her being here. And I will read her words. Becky shared that she's a nurse with experience in diverse settings such as patient care, leadership, and talent acquisition. She's been a Reiki practitioner for 7 years. And guys, that is completely noticeable. Her expertise in Reiki energy work is impressive. She uses Reiki to help improve her health and health of others. And this is a technique to enhance the energy of any situation. So how she makes me feel is that she is a beautiful blend of mind and body, energy and logic, and I will let you find that out for yourself right now. So no further ado, if you could, Becky, go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. This is really an honor and a privilege because, as many of you probably know, Andrea does such great work, brings such energy, and really helps people have epiphanies. What I will be sharing with you today is a little bit about my journey with a tool I call Reiki. And I will start, I think, probably from the place where I felt the lowest in my professional career, where I felt the most burdened and the heaviest, and like emotionally weighed down, and just devoid of energy and vibrancy. And that's actually one of the things that I hold the most value with, is having vibrancy, having energy, enthusiasm. And when I don't feel that, I know something is out of whack, something is wrong. So I remember being in a place, in a leadership, I'd spent a number of years at the bedside, a number of years in a clinic setting, and then you're good at what you do as a nurse, and so people say, well, you should be in a leadership role. And so took on a leadership role in my organization, and at the beginning stages of it, very new, very energizing, but as the months wore on, just started to feel like I was taking on maybe the emotional burdens of others, consistently trying to balance conflict, and feeling really worn out by it, feeling like I couldn't always find a solution. And I felt very disappointed in myself to not find that solution. I remember having lunch with a colleague, and we were just talking about how was work going, and she said to me, you just don't look good. You don't look like the person that I know. I'm actually kind of worried about you. And that was telling for me. That was telling that I needed to do something differently. But I wasn't quite sure what. And around that time, I started becoming really interested in energy medicine, energy healing techniques. It was just a curiosity I had, and something that I felt very drawn to. I think initially I started finding out about Reiki via podcasts and via persons who had experienced this before, who had experienced Reiki and other forms of energy medicine and energy healing, not just Reiki. There's many, many different tools. And it got me kind of excited. It was an aspect of life where I was feeling joy again and feeling excitement. Also around about that same time, I learned of Reiki, and I learned of a person in my neighborhood who was practicing Reiki, and booked a session with her. And truthfully, I went for Reiki, but I actually was discovering a different modality called the emotion code. This person practiced the emotion code. And interestingly, she herself had begun her career as a medical professional, and then segued into energy healing techniques. So I had several emotion code sessions with her, and that was really valuable. But just as soon as she came into my life, she came out of my life. She stopped doing her modalities. And so then it was on to finding a way to continue the journey. And I learned that a person that I had been working with side by side closely was a Reiki practitioner, and I had never known it. And it was such a joy to discover that she was practicing Reiki. She was also a nurse. And so she had her daytime nurse role, but then maybe about a certain percentage of her time was also devoted to her Reiki work.
Mm.
So I booked a session with her, actually part of an integrative medicine department. So really utilizing that in a medical setting. And she explained to me what I would expect. So she explained Reiki is a healing energy. It really has its own wisdom and intelligence of where to go and what you need. Things you might feel during a Reiki session. You might feel relaxation. You might feel emotional release. You might have something there that the Reiki energy is working with that is released during the session. Oftentimes, people will report feeling warmth from the practitioner's hands or some tingling in their body. And almost always, people will really leave that session with a feeling of they got what they needed in that session. And so I had my Reiki session, and I felt a lot of those things. I felt that that warmth from her hands. I felt a calmness. I felt a sense of, this is the tool that I need right now. I think I had one more session with her, and then I was ready to learn the technique myself, because that's one of the great things about Reiki is you can learn this for yourself. You can learn it, you can perform it on yourself, you can perform it on others, you can perform it on animals, you can use it for different situations, professional situations, work situations, relationship situations, and it's not exclusive to the practitioner. So I had a 1-day Reiki course with her, and I really had a quite lovely day. And I think the thing that I remember the most coming away from was I went into that morning feeling stressed about something that was happening at work, feeling a situation where there was a lot of conflict I couldn't control. And it was just eliciting within me this response of panic and anxiety. And I went through that session, and I remember at the end of the day thinking about that same work situation, but there was like this healthy pause in between. It was more of, I was able to just observe the situation and then proceed. It was like the emotions that had been tied of that anxiety were just erased. It was a complete severing. I could see the situation more objectively.
Wow. So how did you create that intention in that moment to do that? Like, what made you stop and separate yourself from the stress and anxiety?
At that point, it wasn't an intention yet. That was just really experiencing Reiki and what it could do, and understanding or experiencing these unanticipated consequences of the Reiki energy. I really went that day wanting to learn Reiki, and simply through experiencing Reiki, opened my mind to experiencing a different emotion. And
unanticipated consequences. Whoa.
Yes. It surprised me in the most delightful way.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. Carry on.
No, keep interrupting. Happy to do any segues.
Well, then, okay, if that's the case, you said that it was work stress that brought up panic and anxiety. Did you feel like that triggered you to then go to the unanticipated consequences? And did that panic and anxiety go away completely in that moment?
It went away completely in that moment. And what I realized was I was having this triggered response that I wasn't even realizing. I didn't even realize I could have the thought and not have the feeling, that I could just have the thought and a different feeling might be possible after having that thought.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. Patty, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. I was sitting here nodding, going, oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes. Well, Patty, this is Becky. She's a Reiki practitioner for 7 years. So we're just going to keep riffing. And if you have something that you want to jump in with, please feel free to. Okay.
Okay.
Becky, is that
Sounds
okay
good.
with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. great. So I won't interrupt you now. You keep going.
Yeah, I can
interrupt
tell,
later.
yep, a little bit more about my story and my path. So that was really showing me, wow, this is a really powerful tool that can be very useful to me. From there, I began practicing with other persons who were at the beginning of their Reiki practice. And that was a really valuable way of getting feedback of how was this tool and this energy impacting others, what were different ways it could affect others. And so that was about once a month, meeting with 4 or 5 other people in a group setting, and then just having time to process after each of those sessions. What did you experience? What did you notice? What did you observe? What did you feel? What are you feeling now? And from there, I gradually grew to doing sessions individually for persons, and providing that Reiki for persons. Now, even as I say that, I think one of the most valuable things, though, has been using Reiki for myself. So continuing on that journey, offering that energy and being available to that energy for myself for whatever intention I have that day, that week, that month. So it could be a physical pain, could be, oh gosh, I'm noticing like some pain in my shoulders, and I'm curious, what's that about? How can, using the intention of Reiki help with that? It might be often where it shows up for me is a challenging relationship, someplace where I feel conflict or sense conflict. And what does that bring up in me? How can Reiki help with that? Either sometimes I see things from a different perspective. Sometimes I simply feel more comforted. Sometimes the situation might just miraculously go away on its own, and we're on to learning a new lesson. And then I use Reiki for anytime I really just want to bring increased energy to a situation, increased joy, vibrancy. So you may have heard at the beginning, Andrea said my current role in nursing is in talent acquisition. So I might be giving a presentation to students about information, and I really want to bring a vibrancy and an energy. And I will send a distant Reiki. So Reiki is an energy that transcends time and space, and send it to that moment. And have that energy available to all of us in that moment, to the students, to the faculty, to myself, really just to enhance the energy. I use it for removing or reducing emotions, blocks, etc. So sometimes, through this work of coaching, sometimes there are beliefs and patterns that are holding us back, that usually we are in such denial about, or we have no idea that they are there. And so sometimes the intention can just be, just use this Reiki energy to remove anything that's holding me back right now. Anything that's preventing me from getting to where I want to be.
Wow. Could you say that one more time?
Oh, I don't know if I could repeat it again. Will it come back?
So you said, help
using
me know. Go ahead.
Using it for blocks, and sometimes those are limiting beliefs or emotions that we've held on to, and just asking for that Reiki energy to take those things away that are preventing me from being where I want to be, the best version of myself, the energetic place that I want to be, or how I'm performing, how I'm interacting with others.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
But it blows my mind, even, because even just hearing you say it, even though logically I know this and practice it, just hearing you say, in hard times, you can really call in an energy to what is holding me back right now.
Yes. And this, sometimes it's different layers of the same pattern, right? Like you peel away one layer and you experience life on that level, and then you come up against that same problem or that same belief. And so then it's just peeling back that next layer of that problem or belief, and then living at that existence, and you know, continuously becoming who we are.
Wow.
So true. That is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is amazing to think that it's not a place we'll stop being in.
Oh, I know. That is that is the truth of life, isn't it? Right? It's your knowledge that we'll continue to have tough times, but lots of times they get less, or we catch on faster the next time around. Right? We have that knowledge of like, oh wait, I've been here before and I previously chose to act or perceive this way, but I remember I don't have to act or perceive that way. I can try something different. And so it's practicing it. It's muscle memory. It never, it's like it's a skill. It's one that you are consistently practicing.
I love that. And I can even tell my mind saying, oh, Andrea, you're not very good at that. Like my brain will still go back to that place. And I know that's not true. But as I was mentioning earlier, what we think we say. So I might say that to you guys, like, yeah, I'm not very good at that. That just means part of me is still working on that belief, and really, like you say, calling in an energy that says, that might feel really true, but it's not. So how do you want to proceed? So, or for me, a big one is I've done my work on this, but I still catch myself saying I'm an associate degree nurse, and what that means for the stereotypes of myself in our world. And I know that to me, it's very meaningful, that it is so valuable to me, but I have to be careful of what I'm thinking and what I'm saying at the same time. And for some reason, what you just said about that, or just knowing your ability to use these tools in the moment, is so sharp that I catch myself being allowed to notice my gaps when I'm in the presence of you. And I love that. I love that. But I wonder, Patty, is there any way that you catch yourself in those moments?
Well, yeah, I totally understand the whole pattern thing, because as you know, as my life coach, we've been through a lot of patterns, same old familiarness, and I think with the whole channeling of the energy, I've come a long ways to finally be able to slow my thoughts down and be able to channel the right energy to handle things in a whole different way, and know that oh wait, I ain't going down, like you were saying, I ain't going down that path. I've been down there, and this kind of energy is pulling me a different direction in a much better way.
Yeah.
I guess what I can observe and hear from you two, or what I really believe about you two, is that you're really good at doing it in the moment. And I think if we were talking about what we really desire and what's possible for us, that's what I'm going to take away for myself today, is that I can do this more quickly in moments. So thank you for already giving me an epiphany.
Yes, that's huge.
Well, and Andrea, what questions do you think people might have about Reiki, or what it feels like, what it looks like? What might be some things that we can, because I know we'll plan for some time to experience it, maybe take 5 minutes of our time and really feel that energy and offer that to everyone who's participating. And of course, it's available to anyone who's watching this at a later time as well. But absolutely curious if there's questions about it before we get to that section.
Yes, if you feel like you feel complete in talking about your journey, I do have some questions. And then I will open up the floor to people, and I will check Facebook in a moment. I guess the one question that I had that came up that wasn't on our list is, how much do you need to know about Reiki to experience it in those moments we were just talking about?
You don't need to really know about it. You just need to have, at minimum, a curiosity about it for it to work. If you're approaching it from, oh my gosh, this is so far outside my comfort zone, I don't believe this is wacko, it probably won't work for you. But if you're approaching it from a sense of curiosity and from a sense of possibility. And I think it's absolutely available to you, and it's always available for what you need in the moment. Sometimes, you know, you might be asking for Reiki energy for one thing, but there's another layer we've got to work on first. So there's another aspect we've got to work on before we get to that, which just makes it easier to get to thing B after we address thing A.
Thank you for that. So what kind of thoughts or energies keep you present and yet future focused when this is a double layer question.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you use that energy to stay focused on finding solutions, not on what's driving the problem? So staying.
So it might be helpful.
Yeah,
it might be helpful to know a little bit about practice that I do. So as a Reiki practitioner, I am attuned to that energy, and anyone can be attuned to it. It is usually in a couple hour or one day workshop. So you can become attuned to that energy. And then I am really thinking about the precepts of Reiki, which are just for today, I won't anger. Just for today, I won't worry. Just for today, I'll be grateful. Just for today, I'll do my work to the best of my ability and honestly. And just for today, I'll be kind to others. And I love that just those precepts focus me on just today. Like I don't have to put on this hat and be this great person every single day. It's just that for today, that's what I'm going to do. And from there, I am really just sensing the Reiki energy. A Reiki practitioner will often use hand positions to focus that energy on different places. So if you have a Reiki session or you see someone performing self-Reiki, you'll probably see them integrating the 7 chakras. So crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root chakra. And so there's different hand placements that will focus on those. And I usually find myself doing self-Reiki either in the morning when I wake up. Sometimes it's as I'm falling asleep at night. Sometimes it's incorporated into a yoga practice. Sometimes I find myself in the morning, I have maybe some anticipation of something that's going to happen at work. And so I just draw my symbol and bring in Reiki, ask Reiki to be in my workspace and just start flowing ahead of time, ahead of me even getting to work or to my desk that day. It's just bring in that energy and be there throughout the day and available for me to use. So I think I actually probably got off track of your question.
It was amazing.
But that's how I find myself using Reiki on a daily basis for myself, right? For those situations that I'm encountering every single day.
And I mean, I love that. That was really helpful. The one thing that you had mentioned when we were talking on Saturday is how you use emotion codes or how it helps with Reiki or influences Reiki. So would you be willing to talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was beginning this story, I think I talked about, I went to a practitioner. I thought I was going to do Reiki, but we actually discussed an emotion code was the technique or the tool that we used in those sessions. And emotion code is based on a belief that our bodies can hold on to emotions. And those emotions can become trapped in our body as energy and cause problems, like eventually cause disease or cause faulty way of looking at situations or pain. And she guided me through this technique. This was where I felt so energized. And at the end of the session, I just felt so light, like I had gotten rid of 20 years worth of emotional junk. It was incredible. So in that technique, the practitioner is asking, does the person, the patient have a trapped energy, trapped emotion that's ready to be released today? And, you can kind of do like an energy I won't get too much into it, but like an energy technique of, you know, this for a yes and this for a no, and being in tune to just where that energy is at. And so there's a chart of different emotions, and you kind of go through, you know, is this in column A? Yes. Is this column A, row 1? Okay. Is Andrea's emotion anger? Is it sadness? And so, you know, kind of honing in on that emotion. And lots of times this will bring up, you'll kind of figure out what age you experience this. Like, was it age 0 to 5? Was it age 6 to 10? Was it 10 to 20? And you can recall that situations that you thought were fully in your past, completely buried, but they're still lingering there in your body, influencing how you act today. And so that was quite revelatory to me to have that technique available. And that's also a technique that you can learn yourself. You actually don't even need to take a class. It's a book that you can read, but there are also classes that you can take.
I guess the one thing that
technique to release emotions.
The question you said was, do I have trapped emotion that can be released in my body?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great question. If you have 5 minutes, I suppose that's a great way to lead into that work.
Yes.
I think the other thing I wanted to touch base with was this couplehood of emotions that you probably have a sense of. And I think we had talked about this before. So the ones that I had written down were blame, jealousy, and defensiveness. I think that you and I had mentioned those were big ones in our world. Do you have any thoughts about those emotions and your Reiki work, or how you couple other emotions with those, or how you handle those?
Well, I think when we were talking about that, we were talking about, what do we do when we feel those emotions, right? Like when that emotion of blame is so overpowering, what do we do in the moment? And so, like we were talking about with Patty, that recognizing maybe you have a pattern to go into that emotion, pausing and thinking, well, what's another energy I could embody in this moment? What's another another emotion I could try on in this situation? And so for many of them, like blame, maybe you're trying on curiosity of, well, why, like where might the responsibility for this lie? Or is it even anyone's fault? Or is it just a situation that is? What were some of the other emotions we talked about, Andrea?
Jealousy.
Oh, jealousy. Maybe it's just coming up as curiosity for me today. I know we had some good ones when we talked the other day, but curiosity of like, well, how did that person get what they have? Or how, are there things they're doing that I'm not, that I could try on? Why am I not doing those things? Is it possible? Am I too scared to do those? Or could I do just one of those steps today that might take me closer to where I want to be in that area of my life?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Then do you go ahead, Patty?
I was just going to say that's the curiosity thing is something that you and I have been like working on. And I think with a husband who has Asperger's and we are at the verge of the divorce, I guess that curiosity has been, being revisiting because of the Asperger's. I've been trying to channel things a little bit differently. Is it something that's the Asperger's related, or and how to try to channel all of that emotion through this process has been, so it's kind of interesting how you talk about things like that. It's like, oh, just to slow my brain down enough and channel that energy where I can ask myself different questions and not just be so hurt and alone over this whole process.
Yeah.
And I think the other emotion was defensiveness that came up when we were talking on Saturday, or one that comes up with me a lot.
Do you remember what we said?
I mean, I wrote down curiosity, but I am blocking out what I said.
But I felt curiosity for all of them. Maybe that's just the theme that's supposed to come through today is keep it simple. Whenever you feel those emotions that are so overpowering, just have curiosity about them. That would keep it really simplistic, wouldn't it? Curiosity about
Yeah.
why might I be feeling this? And is there another energy I could try on in this moment? And it can be just for today. It can be just this situation. I don't have to use this energy every time, but I could be a scientist in my own life and try out, experiment, and try that on, and then observe what happens. Observe if it's helpful or not.
Scientist of my own life. That's a great way to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just doing an experiment for today. Just trying out something different. Kind of alleviates that burden of feeling like you have to change, right? Or feeling like you have to do something different. You're just saying, I'm going to try this for today, and I'm going to see how this works. And from whatever feedback I get, I can decide, yep, in my mind that did work, or it sort of worked, but maybe it needs further refining, or nope, that didn't really work to it didn't have the outcome I wanted, and so I'm ready to try a different emotion or energy or technique the next time.
That's really a game changer if you think about it like that.
That was really insightful for me when I learned that. It just took off so much of the pressure of needing to fix it and needing to have the perfect solution in that moment.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's really good. That definitely disarms that sense or that internal talk that says you should be able to do this forever, you should know about this. Like calming that piece down, it's kind of like the middle, in my mind, it's the middle portion of like knowing that that's happening in my life and knowing that I can stop it. The middle piece is what I say to myself in those moments. And I love that you just allowed me a conversation that's different than maybe what I sometimes have, which is you should already know this.
Yeah.
Let's just let you do an experiment. Really great, because it's definitely 3 stages for me. There's knowing it's happening and knowing I have the power to change it, but that step in the middle is the hardest for me. Stopping in that moment, stopping in that, not using the same muscle memory.
Yeah, and keeping that curiosity fresh, because a lot of the times your brain's going so fast, you know what you got to do, and you know where you want to get to, and then you just kind of like, I don't know, lose all curiosity in the process. And
and that kind of comes with how your body's feeling in that moment, because when you're feeling really defensive or jealous, that feels in your body usually like dookie. So you want to get out of it as fast as possible, but how do you embody? So it sounds like you're holding 2 emotions at one time. Is that what I'm understanding, Beck?
Yes. Yep, you're acknowledging this is the one that's reactive in me, and could I try choosing another one in the moment? So it's either at the same time, or it's feel it, pause, try another one. Acknowledging that maybe that blame or that defensiveness or that anger is there. And that's what triggered you to feel or have that body reaction, right? And then just stopping, noticing, and seeing what you could try on differently.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that I grew up and my parents did an amazing job. But again, I was often unwilling to engage with them with the parts of me that I felt like were out of the realm of what they could see in me. And I think that I had a lot of jealousy growing up, or I noticed that in my gut sometimes. And what that means to me, as I've done some work on that, is if it's possible for someone else, it's possible for me. And so just not a bad place. Like, I think I blamed myself for even thinking about the word jealousy as bad. It just showed me where my opportunities were to believe in myself more. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone,
yes,
but
it absolutely does.
I think switching how I think about jealousy as not being bad, but showing me the opportunity of not wanting to take it away from someone else, but to join them. I think that's been helpful to me. Patty, anything to share about jealousy?
I didn't have a lot of it, but I had a mother who was jealous of my dad and I, and that kind of really changed our relationship for the worse. Where I did push away as a young child to protect him. But for me, it was always shame and guilt. That was I'm feeling stupid. Those were the things that tormented me as a child and young adult. And as you know, 2 years ago, we've been on this journey. So it's been interesting, and knowing what we know now, like knowing that I'm not, I'm very intelligent, and the work it took to get there and the energy it took to get there.
And I like hearing that Becky reminds us that will continue to come up, because that's what's in our body, and we can call in Reiki when we need it.
And just the pause part, that's what I thought when she said, when you were saying about, you have the thought and then you pause and then can I try something different? That is a very learning process as I learn about all the energies that I can pull. Is like, I get the thought, I get the feeling, boom, and there's no pause. There has, over the years we've been working on this, it's like, so I'm learning that to find that pause. And is that just done through, like, how do you think you've gotten to the point where you can actually slow down and pause? And I have an ADHD brain, so pausing sometimes is challenging. So how can I round up that energy to find that pause? If that makes sense.
It absolutely does. I can offer what works for me, and Andrea, definitely jump in. For me, it's not always about the pause. It's just about the noticing what I'm feeling, like noticing I'm feeling that shame. And sometimes it takes me, sometimes I'm working through that same emotion over days and weeks, right? Like, it's not always, it doesn't always feel like it lifts and changes right away. I was thinking about the jealousy one and how does that show up in my life? And there are some times where it completely knocks me on my butt. Like, I'm just like, where is this coming from? I don't want to be feeling this right now. And sometimes it takes a couple of days for me to stop and think about it and ask myself, well, is there something I'm not allowing myself? Is there something I really want that person has, that I've made up some kind of rule that I can't have that? And then, and then I'm like challenged to work on that, for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, either through journaling or Reiki work or talking with someone, and pondering that and playing it out. So yeah, for me, the pause can just be, sometimes it's just is still there and I'm still feeling it. I'm just choosing simultaneously to be curious about it and see what lessons might be coming out of it for me.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, Patty, your question is the same one I always ask. How do I do it more?
Right.
And I simply pay attention and notice, without being hard on myself. But I am in no means perfect at it at all. I mean, I see opportunities every day that I could have slowed myself down and didn't. And sometimes I know that I wasn't supposed to. I had to be where I was going to be. But yeah, I think that how piece. But I think what Becky shares is it's the who you are being in that moment that gives you the permission to slow down. And so it's actually, like she says, calling in that person who would be that kind and thoughtful to ourselves to give ourselves that moment.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
that's one thing that I will take from this is
Uh-huh.
calling that in early in the morning.
Yeah.
So one more question, if you don't mind, Becky, before we maybe do a little Reiki work is, are there times of the day when you have to re-up your Reiki, or do you find that then you just let it go, or how do you keep it as a flow that continues to nourish you day to day, in a day?
It's like anything. I'm not perfect at it either. I mean, just this week, I found myself just having a hard time relaxing. I've had a, you know, and all of our work days and work weeks will ebb and flow. Like there'll be times where it's more challenging and times where it's less challenging. And I've just been in a period of where it's more challenging. And so it's not always easy for me to have that consistent, calm, Reiki energy. But I try to find then other opportunities where I'm not in that, where I haven't allowed, you know, haven't gone into that space, which maybe is for me in the morning or at night. And then when I have a longer period of time to be resting in that Reiki energy, I take those opportunities.
I do love that, because the thing that comes up for me when you say that is, for me, when sometimes I can't have calm, I have to call in a different energy that's a little more like the atoms are bubbling, like boiling water.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm trying to be calm, what the message I'm really trying to send to myself is, you can't be right now.
Yeah.
And so I have to choose a different emotion to use as my guide. Well, I guess, okay, very last question is, you are grounded in science and grounded in energy. How does your brain wrap your mind around that when people, and especially, we haven't even talked about the pain portion of this. Well, what do you say when people are like, you can't heal yourself, you can't do that? How do you live in both worlds? Because I know you do it every day.
Well, I think it's believing that they're all true. There's not one that, it's not a black and white, right? How the world works, it's not black and white. Science is, I think, the point of view that I felt first drawn to in my life. It just made sense to me. It was logical. I was a chemistry major. That's how I graduated. Like that was my path, was being very logical, seeing how things worked, organizing systems, organizing information, cause, reaction, scientific method. And it's a lens that I still hold. I don't discount it. I just no longer see it as the only lens. Because for me, journeying through energy medicine and energy healing has taught me there are things in this world that aren't explained by that system, or there are things in this world maybe that portions of that system can prove and explain, but it doesn't have to be the only system for me. That has been what has made sense to me. And I think I came to that through my moment of crisis, right? My very low point in my career. But I think it was teaching me that not all systems and situations and health problems had to be viewed only through that lens.
Wow. Do you have specific, when you work with folks with pain, do you have specific things that you call on? Do you have a specific...
like physical pain? Pain? Yep. So if we're working on a physical pain, I believe that physical pain can be caused by something physical, but it can also have an origin in emotions or energy. as well. And so really using Reiki, whether that is unlocking some energy that's there, opening up a blocked space, that because those emotions and energies and block spaces might be causing the physical pain. They might be the genesis of that physical pain. And so now you're, in your life, you're experiencing physical pain because maybe you're holding on to something in your emotional body that you're ready to let go of. And so what I like about Reiki as a tool is it works on all of those different levels. It does work on the spiritual, it does work on the physical, it does work on the mental, it does work on the emotional aspects of health. And so it's, it's that one Reiki energy, but it's a tool that's available for each of those different aspects. And it doesn't discount that you're feeling physical pain, because of course you're feeling physical pain there. But I think many of us have had that experience of going to the doctor and maybe it's back spasms, or maybe it's like super low energy, and we run a bunch of tests, imaging, blood work, and nothing is wrong. And I think Reiki is really good for some of those things because there clearly is something wrong, right? We're all meant to have vibrant health. And so I really like to see Reiki as, it's not in opposition to any of our traditional methods. It's just another way of looking at our health problems and bringing us into optimal health.
You helped me to kind of understand this at a deeper level, but my husband has a lot of physical pain. And what's the question I'm asking? I sometimes just like to share energy with him through my mind without telling him. But I also think that what he makes that mean is that he hasn't taken care of himself. What do you say to people that might come to you, and how do you calm that situation for people?
Yeah, I think it's just listening to what people are experiencing that day. So if it's an achy shoulder or an achy wrist, that's where we're starting. That's absolutely where we're starting. Maybe it'll peel off other layers and we'll discover things along the way. Maybe not. Maybe it's just you come, you have some sessions, and your pain feels better. And that's all you need. You don't, it can meet people where they're at. It doesn't have to be. I love it because, it's just something that excites me and I'm curious about. I want to know all the different layers and what's behind them and what might cause them, but not everybody does. And that's okay. That's okay.
I do love that, because you go back to it's what you're experiencing that day. So when you can set down the memory of what it felt like yesterday and kind of forget for a few minutes that it might again happen tomorrow, I mean, that's super helpful. Even in how I think about my husband. Like, I don't have to think about his chronic pain journey. I can just think about him in that moment. Like, that's really helpful. I love that you continue to bring us back to the present moment as the best tool. Wow.
It simplifies things, doesn't it? It does.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially it's like, as me, someone who lives in chronic pain every day, that's pretty huge, because you do get wrapped up in the, oh my God, I hope I feel better tomorrow. I can't take this. Oh, and it's like, I just focus on, how I'm going today, and more, I think my pain is all for a purpose. I just don't know where the journey's taking me yet. But yes, I do get that. That's huge. It changes your whole mindset.
Yeah, I suppose if you're thinking, I can take what I have right now, that changes what the next day will bring, because it's opening up emotion of just the moment.
Right. And then it adds the stress on your body, even more stress on your body, because like for me, like with my husband not living there, I'm in charge of the wood burner. I have severe chronic RA in my entire body and a heart condition. And every time I throw a log in the fire, it's like, oh boy, am I going to feel this tomorrow? Instead of thinking like that, instead of changing to be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, that, like, and having that mindset, I think that's brilliant.
what am I feeling today? And what does that mean I can do today? I can only do what I'm doing today in today. Maybe tomorrow will be different. Maybe you'll feel different tomorrow.
Yeah.
What
But
is
that's
that telling
huge.
me
That
to do?
releases some of the anxiety of, oh my God, I'm going to hurt so bad tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to get out of bed tomorrow, and going, oh, look at me loading this wood burner today, and rejoicing in my accomplishments today. That's pretty awesome.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
That's cool. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I mean, that's an amazing takeaway.
Yeah.
So how to get a sense of lightness in time of depletion is one thing that we thought would be a takeaway. I think we just achieved that, is just coming back to what can I be, do, think, or feel right now today? What's right in front of me? And how to call in supportive thinking and energies, even when you don't have passion or energy. Do you have a
sometimes it's just acknowledging, oh, I don't have any passion or energy today. I wonder what that's about. Like, have I been taking good care of myself? Is there something I could do today? And it could be any number of those like small techniques, right? But it's acknowledging, wow, I don't have any energy today. What are some of the things that sometimes help? Is it reading? Is it when I'm done with work today, I'm going to take a bath? Is it I'm making my favorite tea right now? Is it I'm going to go out at lunch and get something that I really like, but maybe I don't usually, I don't usually give myself that extra 10 minutes to go to that store to get that food. But that little thing, that little act of self-care might be what it's needed for that day. It might not be your passion is all coming back all at once, but it might be, what's the one little step, or what's the one thing that I can do right now to acknowledge that I am feeling that way, but I care enough about myself to try something different.
Wonderful.
And we talked about kind of relearning and processing emotions. One thing that I don't share a lot, but I use a lot is, if I had to describe this emotion to a Martian, how would I do that? So sometimes I do that for myself. And then we were going to kind of offer understanding ways to promote relaxation responses. I think we talked a lot from that.
Well,
go ahead.
I think we we talked about that a bit at the beginning of how Reiki has shown that to me, that sense of relaxation where maybe previously my mind and body went into a panic state. But just having either a Reiki treatment or being in alignment with that energy helped me dissociate from that automatic response, that triggered response of panic in a situation. I mean, another way that this shows up is, I think that's what Reiki is best at, is giving you that sense of relaxation, because I believe that's where healing comes from, your body being in a state of relaxation. So if you're desiring healing on any levels, first you got to get the body to that spot where it's relaxed and can let go of things and can heal itself.
Wow.
And I've really experienced Reiki to do that for me and to do that in others. But of course, it's not the only technique, right? It's one of many techniques, but that relaxation response, I think eliciting that and allowing yourself that really allows for the healing.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on some good things, because that's a buzz, right? Like, just pause and just do it. And it seems so unattainable. And I like that we've kind of dug in a little bit on the who you want to be to do that, instead of the how you're going to do it, because I think we've all tried the hows, and I think you're sharing with us it's that who, or that intention, that energy.
Well, and to your point, Andrea, something that you said earlier, I think it's absolutely okay that we don't experience in every moment, right? There are going to be situations where it's simply not possible, or we're just so far in another emotional state that it's not possible.
Yeah.
Like anything, right? We're practicing it. Doesn't mean we show up in that
Mhm.
Zen moment every moment of our life, but we've practiced it enough so that when we find ourselves in those different, uncomfortable emotional states, we remember we can pause.
Mm.
And it won't be
Yeah.
like that forever. We don't have to, be in that feeling forever.
And the one thing that helps me kind of synthesize what you just said is that sometimes knowing that I'm always coming from a loving place for people, and I typically don't judge how people show up, is that if I need to have an emotion elicited in someone, if I'm being risky enough to share that space with them, it had to happen. It had to happen. And how I think about that is if I notice that I said it from passive aggressiveness or martyrdom, those are the times when I want to really reflect and say, how could I slow myself down? But I've also created space to think about the fact that emotions in people and allowing them to have them and feel them in a relationship with me isn't bad.
Right.
So that's been like, instead of trying to stop everyone from being mad or experiencing fear or being able to always just be happy, that's not the relationship they're going to have with me, because from the place that I live, that's not what I'm going to call out in people all the time. Sometimes I'm going to ask for that hard emotion in them, and that's not wrong. When what I know about myself is that it's always going to be from a non-judgmental, loving place. Hopefully that helps people kind of think about that more in steps. That's always what I need, is steps or the why. So. Well, then, I've probably really gone over our time. So if we could experience a little bit of Reiki, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. Yep. What I intend, if it's okay with you guys, is we'll spend about 5 minutes in this space and this energy. I'll guide us as we start it out, but it will be silent for a little while, right? So, and that's intentional. I really want you to just be in a place where you're breathing, you're aware, and you're experiencing whatever is offered. So I like to start Reiki with asking you to have an intention. What's something maybe that you're struggling with today, or you want to bring more of into your life today, or you want to experience less of today? And it can be, some possible examples could be physical pain, could be emotional pain, could be a situation you're struggling with, or something you want to experience more of. And so as I call in Reiki energy, I offer it to everyone who's part of this call and everyone who might be listening to this call in that moment. And we'll just take a couple of deep breaths. So deep breath in and out. And a breath in and a breath out. Allow your body to relax. And I'll be offering Reiki energy for you for the next couple of minutes for your intention and for your highest good. And then I'll just gently bring us back.
Wow. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to each of you for participating in that. The joy
Thank
to
you.
share.
So as people are getting this video on replay, how do they find you?
Yes, great question. Would say the best opportunity right now is by email. And I'll give you that email and that you can have that available, Andrea. It is RHAGEN, my first initial, my last name, 2913 at gmail.com.
Okay, I will include that when they go out in emails, when the replay goes out in email. Well, I cannot thank you enough for this time, and Patty for joining, and all of you on Facebook for joining.
Thank you.
We started out, yeah, it is wonderful. We started out thinking about living in possibility and how that requires us to ask sometimes different questions about what we know about what's possible for us based on our stereotypes. And this work today really allows us to then dig into each moment we are there. How living in possibility requires us to be very present, to allow that to open up in a way that's meaningful and not shocking and not always needing to feel urgent about it. So thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a
Thank
great day,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Yes. Oh, happy weekend. Yes. Take this energy forward, like summer camp. I mean, I do feel like I was a little at summer camp.
Uh,
All right. Thank you.
bye. Thank
Bye.
you.